God damn, this is a sick ass video game. If you were wondering my thoughts on the game, there you have it. 007 First Light is nothing but fun from start to finish, so let's talk about it. First, you should know that I grew up loving James Bond. One of my best friend's dads had the box set of the old Bond movies, and he and I would watch the old ones together. We loved them. This same friend would also come over to my place before school, and we would play PvP on 007 Nightfire on the GameCube. The game had bots, so this was basically my introduction to online FPS multiplayer before it was really a thing. Technically, Unreal Tournament was my first exposure to that because that was actually playing real people, not bots. But I didn't get hooked on that genre of game until COD Modern Warfare. But before COD, my friends and I had 007 Nightfire, and before that we had GoldenEye 007. My friends and I would do 4-player split screen on like a tiny 28-inch TV and have sleepovers where we would stay up all night just playing GoldenEye multiplayer. It was so damn much fun. Honestly, a core memory. I also had a friend who was unreal at GoldenEye, and he beat the game on all the hardest difficulties. He taught me how to unlock secret levels like the Cradle and such. He also got a Game Shark, and there was a mod for Naked Natalia, which us little 8-year-old boys thought was so badass, even though looking at the polygons now is totally laughable. But to us kids, those graphics were realistic as hell. I have such fond memories playing GoldenEye as a small kid, and each release after GoldenEye I was hyped as hell for. I remember I had a little silver toy gun, and I taped a laser pointer onto it, and I would sneak around my basement pretending I was James Bond. So to say I have a bias for the character would probably be an understatement. I've watched the latest Bond movies in my adulthood, and that's about as far as my love goes for it these days. I'm not obsessed with the franchise like I was as a youngster, but I still think the movies are good. When I was around 12 years old, I got really into cars as well, and I thought that Aston Martin V12 Vanquish from Die Another Day was the sickest thing ever. Everything about the franchise just oozed cool to me as a kid. Another thing I loved as a kid was Spider-Man, and I've played all the Spider-Man games since the one they released on GameCube back in 2002. That was the Tobey Maguire era. I grew up in a very small town, but there was a bigger town of like 7,000 people 45 minutes away that had a theater with one screen. I got to tag along with a friend of mine to go see the movie, and I was hooked on the franchise, and my excitement was palpable with the announcement of a modern-day Spider-Man game. I played the shit out of that first Spider-Man game on the GameCube, and as I said, I played each subsequent release since, the latest being Spider-Man 2 in 2023. I bring this up because I feel that there is a ton of that kind of DNA in 007 First Light from the beloved games of my youth. I also played all the Batman Arkham games as well. And I also own the Uncharted games, though I actually haven't beaten them all, as I got them after I was a young kid and didn't play games nearly as much. You know, sports, school, life, that's just how it goes sometimes. But just from the little bit that I have played and the clips I've seen of the franchise, I feel like 007 First Light takes a lot of inspiration from the Uncharted franchise. A suave, handsome protagonist who is equipped to deal with any situation, jet-setting around the world and saving it time and time again. Actually, come to think of it, maybe Uncharted took inspiration from Bond now that I think of it, but regardless, 007 First Light feels like an Uncharted game, and I mean that as a compliment, because this game is a cinematic action game through and through. I often say that I play games for the gameplay, and that is true by and large, but I can appreciate games that bring other things to the table. Like God of War is one of my favorite game franchises of all time. It has awesome gameplay, but I also love the puzzles and secrets and story of those games. I find it's just a blend of so many things done well, and that is how I feel about 007 First Light. It doesn't have industry-leading shooting mechanics, but it feels damn good to shoot in this game. I played on mouse and keyboard, by the way. It doesn't have world-class driving controls, but go play Forza if that's what you're looking for. The driving sections in this game are quite short and not super abundant, so it doesn't need to be great, but it's more than serviceable. This game, in my opinion, doesn't do anything poorly. Everything feels more than adequate, but it also shines in some aspects unrelated to gameplay. The first of these being visuals. I think this is the first game I've ever played where I've been genuinely attracted to a video game character. I'm a sucker for a brunette with an accent, and the woman you meet in Vietnam, Teresa Lorca, is hot as hell, I'm not gonna lie. But eye candy aside, all the main characters in this game look stunning. It's funny, I wrote this script as soon as I finished my playthrough, and then I got into the rabbit hole of Twitter discourse around this game, and it seems I'm not the only person thirsting over these fine-ass women in 007 First Light. So props to IO Interactive, you make some damn good looking characters. I played the game in 4K, so that certainly helps, but now I'm so curious to see how real the people look in GTA 6. I only have a base PS5, so I'm curious if they will look better despite the weaker hardware. Speaking of hardware, I have a pretty beefy rig with a 4090, but I played in 4K on max settings and I didn't have any noticeable performance issues, so props to them on the optimization. I had a few funny glitches in the game here and there, but nothing too immersion shattering. I did have one bug that caused me to have to restart a mission. I killed a guy and you're supposed to grab his earpiece, but because of where his body ended up, I was unable to retrieve it. Luckily, the save state went right back to when I entered that room, so I just had to beat him up one more time and then I was on my way, which is a huge compliment that I must give this game. I just played the whole Dark Souls series and I'm not knocking them for runbacks and such, that's how they're designed, but I will say in 007 First Light, I really love how you can just jump right back into the action where you pretty much just left off if you reach a fail state. It is very seamless, and you don't have to trudge through an entire level because you failed just before a checkpoint or something. I didn't fail a ton in this game, but when I did, I was right back to where I failed within like 30 seconds, which was really nice. I'll come back to fail states in a minute, but I want to finish my thoughts on the amazing looking characters because I've never played a game with such realistic looking people. Not even close, to be honest. I was truly stunned. Even the NPCs are so well done. At one point you're in a packed nightclub, and listen, I did a lot of clubbing in my 20s, and this was pretty much the most authentic looking nightclub scene I've ever seen in a video game. My chat was also super impressed. I haven't played Cyberpunk, but they were saying how Cyberpunk clubs are just like two people standing in a corner, which surprised me a bit because I thought Cyberpunk was supposed to be super detailed as well. But yeah, all the characters in this club scene just look incredible. They all have details and unique faces, and yeah, they just looked super real. Honestly, like the kind of people that you would see in a club. But yeah, that club in 007 First Light is incredible. I was just jamming out in there to the music, walking around, people watching. You can bump into people, listen in on conversations. It's just so well done. And you can do this in every level, by the way. I've seen some people that have beaten the game in like 12 hours. I took 22 because in every single level, I would walk around the entire level and listen to the dialogue of all the random characters. And it was always super well done. It wasn't super cheesy. As the game progresses, big story beats happen and you'll be in the MI6 HQ and hear people giving their takes on billionaire Nicholas Webb and the controversy he's embroiled in. At the high-end resort in Vietnam, you have some cougars make a comment about how hot they think Bond is.
No need to ask me twice to do a downward dog.
Leave the man candy alone, Babs. This is not that kind of place.
It's whatever I want it to be, hun. I'm paying enough for it.
Ladies?
You have two girls send a guy some tequila and tell the waiter to send the dude over. Then you can listen to them flirting back and forth. At another point in the game, you're at a ritzy hotel doing security detail during a chess tournament, and there's all kinds of high society types talking about chess and other things. One guy talking about the Aston Martin DB9 that he purchased and how it's in the parking lot, not going anywhere. I knew immediately that this was foreshadowing and we'd be doing something to that car.
1969 Aston Martin DBS V8. Oof, mint condition. I'm not one to brag.
But you'll make an exception with me.
Suppose so. It's right out in the car park in case you want to have a gander.
Perhaps later. I must go feign interest in this dreadful chess business, or my wife will want to have a conversation.
Suit yourself. She's not going anywhere.
More foreshadowing, I bet. Sure as shit, we hotwire it and go in hot pursuit of a bad guy. These are just a few examples from a few levels, but when I tell you the game is full of them, I mean it. Again, I took 22 hours to beat the game, where some have done it in 12, and most average around 15, I think. It's not because I was failing missions, it's because I was immersing myself in the game, and they made the immersion really easy to get into and really fun to be a part of. I can't speak highly enough of the world building. As for level design, I first want to talk about how well the levels are designed visually. There's so much attention to detail in every single level. The high-end resort legit feels like a high-end resort. It reminds me of the White Lotus in the season where they're in Thailand. It's super well done. The high-end hotel where the chess tournament is, my god, it looks so good. The MI6 headquarters, it feels like an intelligence agency office building. And there are so many small details in each level that really help bring it to life. I honestly can't praise the levels enough. It's classic quality over quantity. You go to maybe like 10 unique locations, maybe a bit more. Point is, not a ton. It isn't the hundreds of procedurally generated planets like Starfield, but that's a good thing. Each area is so fun to explore simply because they were all designed with intent and care. They were purpose built to make each space feel believable and real. As for how the levels play, we laugh at yellow paint a lot, and sure, that is present, but it is also done in some clever ways throughout the game as well. And for what it's worth, I did get stuck in a few parts even still. Not for very long, but sometimes I was stumped for a bit on where to go. Just enough to make me think, but never enough to frustrate me. The game is pretty on rails as a whole. Like, I would try to go off the beaten path from time to time and the game stops you, but there's nothing wrong with that. It keeps you focused on the objective. But one thing that is cool about your objective is that in most cases, you can achieve what you're trying to do in at least 2 different ways for all the main missions. You're in a bazaar in Africa at one point, and you have to find a way to get $100,000. Again, the place is crawling with people who are fun to listen to, so I really just enjoyed walking around and people watching again. But you can go do a whole bunch of different side quests to get your money, including pickpocketing people by using your high-tech Q watch. I didn't go fight a guy, but I know that was one of the side quests, and I wanted to do that one, but I wound up just happening onto the other side quests instead and never got around to it. Many of the main story missions have multiple ways to complete them, which adds great replayability to the game. In that same vein, here's where we come back to fail states. There are many times you're surrounded by enemies and you can stealth your way through the mission. Conversely, you can also just open up a can of whoop-ass and beat them all down to accomplish your goal. Another game I loved as a kid was Splinter Cell. I just thought the whole aesthetic around that game was super neat, and I loved being stealthy in those games. But I always preach player agency in any game, and I love when games give you the keys to the car to let you choose how you want to approach a challenge. In 007 First Light, I rarely went with the stealthy approach because I just found combat very fun. But I love that it's an option, and again, a throwback to a genre of a game that I loved as a kid. Sneaking through the vents or around on cable trays totally took me back to the Spider-Man and Splinter Cell days. And then when it was time to shoot baddies, I was reminded of Uncharted, and if we had to bare knuckle box, then it reminded me of the Arkham games. A perfect mashup of playstyles that I've enjoyed over the years. The missions all have challenges too for the completionists out there, so you can run a mission over and over and try to do it in different ways to achieve the challenges. I think this is awesome game design. Again, it encourages replayability but doesn't force you to engage with the game in a way that you dislike. It's totally and completely optional. There's also tactical simulations where you can compete for high scores and again, do more challenges, which unlocks in-game cosmetics. I'm all about this, man. Not in the sense that I will be high score chasing, but just that they have cosmetics that are earnable in-game through mastery of the game's systems, rather than through swiping a credit card. I mean, the game is a full-price $70 AAA game, so it should be like this, but in the big 2026, this kind of thing is worth calling out and praising, just because of how rare it sadly is becoming. So props there. And on that topic, this is why the playtime for dollars spent argument is so fucking stupid. Sure, the main story can be beaten in 12 hours, and speedrunners will drop this down tremendously, but there's also so much replayability here. You could play the whole game again and do all the other objectives that you didn't do the first time, so right there, that's another 15 hours. There's also unique dialogue in many points throughout the missions, so you could replay certain parts of a mission to exhaust all that dialogue. You could complete all the aforementioned challenges and do all the tax sim stuff to unlock the cosmetics. Now all of a sudden you're looking at 60 hours of playtime, and you may not even be done. Not to mention the fact that the game has a hard difficulty. I played on regular, so you could try it on that, just like how GoldenEye had 00 difficulty or whatever it was. Back in the day, games were made to be replayable, so the 12-hour main story is just completing the bare bones of the game. That being said, I likely will only play that. Maybe I come back and do those missions in other ways, but I have tons of other games that I want to play first. But if I was a kid again and this was one of the few games that I owned, like the Bond games were of my youth, then absolutely I would be replaying this. It's very much worth it. I mentioned selecting unique dialogue, but I want to talk about the writing in general. I very often just ignore story in some games because I'm there for the gameplay, and because the story is hidden in lore and stuff, looking at you, Hollow Knight and Dark Souls series. But those games can be played without interacting with the story, and they can still be awesome. In 007 First Light, the writing and cutscenes and everything are just so well done and make you appreciate the game that much more. Which, to be fair, story is a big part of a game like this. It's basically like one big long interactive movie, so that makes sense. As I said, I can play games with no story and enjoy them, but if a game is story-centric, I want it to be good. I hated The Last of Us 2 because the story I thought was shit. So the mediocre gameplay felt that much worse because I wasn't enjoying a main part of what the game had to offer. In this game, the gameplay is fun but not groundbreaking. It isn't Silksong, but it's still good. But the story is just so well done that it just adds to the enjoyment of the game. This is the origin of the famed James Bond, an orphan who got drafted into MI6 at 26 years old. He has that cheeky smirk and witty banter naturally. He didn't grow into it or learn it, it's just who he is.
Good stuff. Yes, I am this handsome.
Why do you keep on fighting? After all you've done for these people, they locked you up. Oh, and nothing.
I'm afraid the boys in accounting would disagree. I must say, you look astonishing for your age, Agent Roth. Hardly a day over 50. So looks can kill. I do like a woman who experiments.
Jesus, James. Really?
Because she's a scientist. Any advice?
Doing what you're told might be a good start.
Ponsonby?
Bond?
You start out with him entering the 00 program and going through the training with the other new crop of 00 agents. Their friendships and backstories are interesting. It's cool to see how it all started, but it doesn't wear out its welcome. Before you know it, you're sent into the fray and doing missions. The pacing of this game I found to be almost perfect. I really liked it. Oh, and a quick mention, but the seamlessness of going from the cutscene into the mission is something that's super well done. When I say it's seamless, I mean it. The transitions are top tier. Pay attention when you play it and you'll see what I mean. Damn, that transition though. The writing of Bond and the other characters is so friggin' good, man, as is the voice acting. M, the head of MI6 and Bond's superior, wants Bond to listen, and when he inevitably doesn't, she can't help but still have a soft spot for him. Q, oh man, Q is such a real one, dude. So likable. I absolutely loved him.
Well, don't look at me, I just work here.
Moneypenny, it's really fun seeing her and Bond's flirtatious banter and going back and forth.
I told you I had her straight.
John Greenway, another of Bond's superiors, basically his trainer and mentor in the 00 program, a 00 himself, is similar to M in that he wants Bond to listen, but at the same time he can't help but respect him when he inevitably doesn't, but his skill and intuition ends up saving the day. The relationship between Greenway and Bond is super touching and has a beautiful arc throughout the game. I haven't been this in love with a story since Claire Obscure, and that's high praise because, as I said, normally I don't even care that much about story. And speaking of story, it's about a billionaire who, wouldn't you know it, is kind of a corrupt piece of shit. Not in an evil way, more of an end justifies the means type of way. There is also lots of dialogue about the dangers of AI and just tech in general. At one point, you're at a secret facility in Antarctica headed by Sir Nicholas Webb, said evil billionaire, and two guys are talking about the dangers of the robotics that they're working on. It's all just really well done.
After the proxemics trials, I'm requesting a transfer to the disaster relief team.
Why? Cognitive mimetics isn't edgy enough for you.
Have you seen the specs for the next-gen disaster response unit? It's so cool. It uses plasma rays to cut through obstacles, and it employs different sensory modes to detect survivors. Motion and pheromone detection, echolocation, thermal imaging. It can detect a gopher through 10 feet of solid concrete.
In other words, no hiding from that thing.
Come on, don't be that guy.
If it can be exploited, someone will. Equal and opposite forces. When you're surrounded by too much techno-optimism, you tend to forget basic human nature.
Seriously, why do you design robots if your outlook is that bleak?
That bleak outlook is precisely why I should be the one designing robots.
Rob is covering their anniversary gala in London next week. Should be rather interesting. Rumour has it they're going into robotics.
That's about the last thing the world needs, isn't it?
The world's getting it whether it wants it or not. And there's no place I'd rather get it from than Web Industries.
Hey, you're the expert.
Again, I'm not going to show every example, but you will see it throughout the game. And again, if you take your time and listen to all the interactions and all the levels like I did, you'll totally see what I mean. The writing is just so good in this game. One game where I do love the story is God of War, another franchise favorite of childhood me. One thing I love about those games is how I walk away from them feeling like I just enjoyed a super long movie. Those games feel like interactive, super in-depth movies. Like movies, but better because they can last much longer, so they dive into things like relationships and such that much deeper. I got that same feeling walking away from 007 First Light, like I had just watched an epic movie. But that is not to say that the gameplay elements are lacking. This isn't a mixtape situation where it literally is just a movie disguised as a video game. No, this is more to praise how good the storytelling is. There are some silly elements to the gameplay, like using your Q-Watch to blind a guard or make him sick and immediately sneak by him. But I mean, it's a video game. Just enjoy it and do the thing. It doesn't have to be wholly realistic. But I did love how you can trigger certain things like hoses or radios or vacuums to distract people to get by them if you're out of charges on your watch. Again, there are many ways to deal with encounters, and that agency is much appreciated. One really innovative way is just by straight up bluffing and hoping that they fall for it. You can't abuse this technique as it has charges like your gadgets, but it is such a unique and cool way to deal with a problem, and it perfectly fits the smooth talking James Bond. There's also so much fan service in this game. Another spy introducing Bond to a martini, shaken, not stirred, and he doesn't know the difference.
What's this?
Vodka martini. Shaken, not stirred.
What's the difference?
I want what I want, James.
Certain Steam achievements or level names being odes to past movies. They also have the OG Golden Gun from GoldenEye as an earnable skin in the game, not to mention all the outfits from iconic movies over the years. The point is, the game is a love letter to the Bond franchise, and I think that is really beautiful. I mentioned I played on M&K, and that's because for shooters, I just love clicking heads. But I find the stealth and such to be a bit cumbersome, but I also could have fucked with my keybinds to make it feel a little better after I knew what was what. I would honestly suggest playing with controller as I think it would feel better, but to each their own. I think this game is a classic case of the sum being better than its parts. The gameplay is very good, I want to be clear, but it's not industry-leading gunplay, combat mechanics or driving mechanics aren't cutting edge, but it doesn't have to be. It is all more than serviceable, and the CQC combat actually has really good depth to it if you care to learn and master it. Just like The Last of Us has a high skill ceiling in that respect, or Death Stranding, but personally, I feel that the combat and gunplay in this game is much better than those. But yeah, it feels really good to play. The multifaceted approach of being able to tackle each level in a variety of ways is so awesome and great for repeat playthroughs. The combat difficulty and puzzles that you have to solve in these levels is not too challenging, but again, it doesn't have to be. It's meant to keep the player engaged, but never there to stop them, as you want to keep the plot progressing. It adds just enough friction to remind you that yes, this is still a video game, an interactive medium. You do have to use your brain, but it never tries to gatekeep you or skill check you from progressing. If you want that, play games that offer that. This game, more than anything, knows what it wants to be and should be and delivers on that perfectly. I said it's exactly the nostalgia hit I was looking for because I haven't played a Bond game since I was like 15 maybe. I haven't watched a Bond movie since the last one that came out, and I can't even tell you what one that was. I was hoping for something that would take me back to those GoldenEye and Agent Under Fire and Nightfire days, and this game delivered and then some. not only reminding me why I love Bond, but why I love cinematic action games like Spider-Man and all the rest. Creeping through vents and being stealthy and also whooping on bad guys. It delivered in every way I hoped it would, while simultaneously exceeding my expectations in visual fidelity and unique approaches to accomplishing your missions. I can't speak highly enough of this game, and if you even have a passing interest, I can't recommend it enough. Anyways, that's it. Comment down below your thoughts on 007 First Light. Come follow me on Twitch at itssizzle7 to watch me play games live. I played my entire Bond playthrough there and had a lot of fun. Like and sub if you want to see more gaming reviews, and lastly, thanks for watching if you're still here. It means a lot. I'll catch you in the next one. Take care.